Hello, my name is Farida, and I talk about Black women living a life of ease, peace, and relaxation through remote work and travel. If any of those things are interesting to you, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And you'll be going on this journey with me as I come up with new ideas, new countries to think about and explore, and new money making remote opportunities that I discover. So, first things first, I am also thinking a lot about teach away programs, not remote teaching, in person teaching in other countries. So, this is one of those cases where, you know what, maybe going back to teaching, if it's lucrative, if it's realistic, and if the country is not too far from my babies in the US, that I am starting to consider. So, teaching is one of those things that if you have that skill, if you have, those certifications, it's something that can come in handy forever. So, today, what I will be talking about is the country of Turkey and how I've been looking into Turkey and thinking about Turkey as a place to, live for quite some time while I'm getting my Grenada citizenship together. Possible residency. I do not qualify for citizenship, as we'll talk about, but I'll be talking about the pros that I have found from researching Turkey and talking with some buddies and some people online that live in Turkey currently and what they have to say about Turkey. So, let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, Turkey citizenship. You can mostly become a Turkish citizenship through and heavily investing in their country. So I believe it's 400K now to become a citizen, or $500,000 invested in their banks. I remember a time where one of my buddies was telling me it was only 250,000. So I'm thinking this jump is recent. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You know who you are because you were looking at apartments and building and living in Turkey. You know who you are. So let me know if that price skyrocketed, because I was so certain that it was $250,000. So, it's a little bit out of my price range. It's a little expensive, but that is not the only way that you can live in Turkey or even get citizenship. You can definitely marry someone that lives in Turkey. So, find a Turkish guy and marry him and live in Turkey for 3 years. You'll be on your way to citizenship. Also, I'm looking at my notes. So as you can also live there for 5 years without interruption, have a stable lifestyle, have a stable income, and slowly get your citizenship or residency that way. Also, they do have a citizenship by descent program where if one of your parents was a Turkish citizen, and then you guys, and they left for America and had you, you can go and prove that and become a citizen that way. So, unfortunately, I do not have any Turkish blood, but man, that is good. That is good if you do. So, those are some avenues if you're looking at citizenship, but residency is good enough, so, and those requirements are less strict, but look into that, what are some of those requirements? And hey, if you have the cash, you have the cash. If you're rich, go for it. The pace of life in Turkey, it just really depends on where you are. So if you're in some of the really busy cities like Istanbul, then yes, the pace is going to be busy, lots of things to do, and lots of fun activities, restaurants, museums, the nightlife type of scene, if you're into that. There is a lot to do. But if you're like me and you like the slower pace, I'm thinking about living in some of the more laid back cities, like Antalya. I researched Antalya, Bodrum. Everyone says like the coastal areas are more laid back, more relaxed. People are just enjoying themselves, enjoying life, and that is so my vibe. So my vibe. So, yes, if I ever lived or worked in Turkey for large stretches of time, it would definitely be in the more coastal areas and less of the busy cities. I'd probably go and visit because I like to people watch and sightsee and eat good food. And usually the good food is, going to be plentiful in the big cities. But as far as living, I want to just drive away from the city and go to my apartment and look out the window at the waves. So definitely the coastal areas sound gorgeous. All right. The next thing is the cost of living, which is a lot better than here in the States and in the UK and Canada. A lot better. You can get a one bedroom apartment in some areas for as little as $300 a month, which is amazing. Now, of course, if you're willing to spend more, or if you live in busy cities, the prices will be more expensive, but that is a steal. That is a deal. So definitely you'd be saving money on rent. Excuse me. And the cool thing is, if you have a remote job in the US and you take that remote job and continue to work it in Turkey, now you are making money, okay? You're making money. So as a digital nomad, someone who's really interested in remote work, using that US dollar to stretch it somewhere else, that is a really exciting thing about Turkey for me. All right, so next is, infrastructure. What I love about what I've been hearing and researching about Turkey is that, it's basically the best of the West and the best of the East. You've got your highways, you've got your byways, you've got railways, you've got really good roads, really good infrastructure. You've got great internet service. Again, for a digital nomad, a remote worker, you need that digital service. So you can, you could have that digital service, and you also can go to cafes, you can go to remote work areas, restaurants, public areas, and you can do your people watching while you're also doing your remote work. So that is definitely a bonus for Turkey. What more about the infrastructure? Electricity is reliable in a lot of countries. Sometimes the electricity goes down and you're constantly relying on those backup generators, and the backup generator is not really a backup anymore. It's just the generator. So a country that has the beauty of the East, that old world feeling, but these new world amenities, that is so me. That is so my style. Okay. Clean water. You don't have to worry about, water being an issue. In some countries, especially the islands that I've been looking at, they've been going through water shortages, That's an issue. That's something that might make your life a little bit uncomfortable. But when you have clean water and you don't have to boil water, on a regular, or buy big jugs of water for the month, that is a really nice plus about Turkey. And then mobile providers. They've got a lot of mobile providers. Turkcell, Vodafone, Turk Telecom. So, yeah, you will be fine, with the mobile providers there. You'll be able to call your loved ones, keep in touch, keep in community. and, get in touch with the local meetup groups, and yeah, feel like, okay, at any time I can get in touch with my loved ones. All right, next is remote work. We touched on this quite a bit because, I'm a remote work girly. I love remote work, and anything that I can do where all I need is my laptop, maybe some headphones, and very few additional add-ons to the computer to get the job done. I'm all ears. I am open. I'm all ears. So, looking at my notes for remote work, again, Wi-Fi and internet is super, super strong. Free Wi-Fi in cafes. In your homes, you have good Wi-Fi as well. The connection is very stable. And remote workers are welcomed and encouraged to, benefit their country and stimulate the economy and shop and buy. So I've researched recently that there are countries that really, the people are really not too crazy about remote workers and digital nomads. Granted, some of them have been acting like little colonizers and going over there and, driving up prices, not giving back to the communities, and generally just being annoying Americans and giving us all a bad name. But on the whole, Turkey welcomes digital nomads and remote workers, so that is another great plus for Turkey. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, as far as infrastructure, I forgot to mention healthcare. Healthcare. The hospitals are fantastic. They have a huge medical tourism industry, dentistry, your checkups, everything is so thorough, whereas in the US, you just get the standard humdrum appointment. In Turkey, they go deep. They check everything. They do lots of tests, and the prices, it's universal health care. So the prices, if any, are super reasonable. So for all those reasons and more, Turkey is looking very attractive. The thing about Grenada that I'm not so crazy about is that their healthcare is not so good. For healthcare in the islands, basically, if there's something really major, you've got to get life flighted out of there, to get the healthcare that you need. So that is obviously, as much as I love Grenada and I'm excited to get citizenship, that's something that I definitely need to consider as I'm getting older and as I want my parents to come and visit. So, make sure that they're going to be okay when they're staying with me. So those are some things that Turkey's really got it going on with. So, okay, moving on. We got to talk about racism because, some places you go, I had a group of buddies go to India and they did not like it as Black women. They were not feeling it. They were not feeling the stares. They were not feeling the whispers and just did not have a good experience with being Black women in India. So whether the racism is systemic or if it's just based on ignorance or bias or colorism, we don't want it. We definitely don't want it. And while there's racism everywhere, some are, the microaggressions, okay, maybe that's not so bad, but the deep, serious issues of the caste system in India definitely, it's not a place I would ever consider living, just for those reasons. As a Black woman, no. But when we talk about Turkey, Turkey is a very, very interesting country because from everyone that I've talked to, from my homegirls to people that live there now to doing research about Turkey, you find that systemic racism does not exist, which is great. And then there might be some microaggressions and stares, but you know the difference between a stare of just intense scrutiny and disgust and a stare of admiration and curiosity. So, some of the things that might make one uncomfortable, is, like wanting to touch your hair or look at you or touch you. Um, Sometimes the Turkish men will definitely just try to talk to you, admire you. They're very curious about you. And I mean, to them, you are exotic. They don't see that every day. So it's a different type of experience, rather than, that feeling of hostility. It's a feeling of genuine curiosity. And I want to get to know you better. And who are you and where are you from? And frankly, the fact that you're an American is definitely going to be a bigger deal than the fact that you're a Black woman. So that is something that I found to be very comforting, and hopefully you do too. All right, so let's talk about treatment of women, because as women, we want to make sure that whatever country we go to, we are free to travel, we're free to work, we're free to get education and just live our everyday lives. And from everyone I've talked to, all my research, the treatment of women is, legally protected to have equity of access to education, health care, movement around the country, property ownership. What else? There was an important point that I wanted to bring up. Education. Oh, and work. As a digital nomad, I've got to be able to work. So those will not be a problem in Turkey. Okay. Again, you might have some light street I don't want to say light street harassment. That's wild and diabolical. You might have some catcalling going on just because you're a woman and you're different and you look different. And the men there, some of them express their appreciation in the form of street harassment. But, if you are, basically, for me, I'm covered and it is a Muslim majority country. So that harassment is probably not going to be as much if you are covered, if you are hijabi. If not, then, hopefully they, can take no and stop for an answer. But from what I've heard overall, the treatment of women is really good. They are really respected, cared for, and, the chivalry. One woman told me that her cab driver took her to the grocery store to get all her groceries and then carried all her grocery bags back and forth to the house. He would not hear of her carrying those groceries herself while he was around. So that's something that I really, really think is a great practice and something that encourages me definitely to work there one day. And let's see. Yeah, that was my last point. What a way to end this video with yeah, that's it. But yeah, seriously, those are the reasons why Turkey is definitely a country that I'll be researching more and looking into. I don't think I will be doing a scouting trip because, again, I've just had so many family and friends and, people that are my online friends say such great things about Turkey that I don't think a scouting trip will be necessary unless it has something to do with, securing, an apartment for 3 to 6 months or something like that. But definitely that's on my list of places for slow travel / short-term living, and possibly more. Who knows, you never know. All right, well, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.